Hello, and welcome to SG Squared. Steve Gladen, Global Small Groups Pastor at Saddleback Church, pulls from his 20-plus years of small group ministry experience to encourage and equip listeners to lead more effective small group ministry. Sit back, learn, and enjoy SG Squared with Steve Gladen.
Welcome to SG Squared, Steve Gladen on small groups. Thank you so much for tuning in. Derek here along with your other host, Saddleback Church's Connections Pastor, Steve Gladen.
Hey everybody, good to be on this show with you.
And our topic today is about evangelism. And so, Steve, I wanted to start out asking you if you happen to have any kind of train wreck type story on evangelism maybe not going the best way.
Well, I mean, the show is all about evangelism made easy for your groups. But let's just dive into a couple train wrecks we have. I think I don't know if they're train wrecks, but there's so much. My parents got saved when they were 54. And they were so excited and so bummed that nobody told them about Jesus that they both handled it a different way. And my dad his idea was, hey, when I pay the bills, I'm going to put a track in every bill and I'm going to send it off. And so it was a, turn or burn track. My mom was a little bit more aggressive. And when anybody would come to work on the house, when something was broken down or something needed repairs, before she would give them the check, she would present the gospel. And she'd go, I'm going to give you this check. But before I do, I want to give you something more valuable than this check. And then I would just, as a senior in high school, I'd be sitting there going, oh my gosh, I just want to get out of this room when my mom does this. And so maybe it's more about me than it was about my mom and dad. But I think there's some more relational ones. But I mean, how about you? I mean, I know somewhere rolling around in your memory banks, there's got to be a story or two that went awry.
Yeah, one that jumps out to me is years ago as a youth pastor, we took a group of our teenagers on a mission trip downtown LA with an organization and they told us each night we're going to go out and do evangelism in the city. And so, man, we're excited. We're thinking, okay, maybe we're going to hand out food. Maybe we're going to hand out tracts. And they bring us around this giant, massive life-size cross, probably bigger than life-size. This thing was huge. And we're like, what are we doing with the cross? And this cross had like painted blood on it. And it, I think it said Jesus at the top or something. Or it said, something like, he paid for your sins. And they said, oh, well, we're going to do evangelism. And so what this is going to look like is you guys are going to carry this downtown Sunset Boulevard and take turns shouldering the cross. So Sunset Boulevard, okay, this is like the party scene, the strip club.
My hood needs the Lord, but I don't know if that's the best way, brother.
Let's just say we heard everything you could ever hear on planet Earth carrying that cross. And I was freaked out of my mind half the time when I was youth pastor, but I'm thinking, is this the best way to do evangelism?
Well, let's kind of jump into the show a little bit, and let's use both our brains to figure out, what are some better ways that, it's clear that there's this old saying, and I love it so much. It's, people always talk about being the salt and the light into the world, but sometimes our salt is so salty, it gives us high blood pressure. And sometimes our light is so bright that it blinds us. And I don't think that's what Jesus wanted from any one of our stories or what our small groups are doing or things like that. So I thought it might be kind of cool if we would kind of break into just a evangelism made easy for your small groups and see if we can kind of unpack a couple of things. So I know we're going to go with an acrostic called LIFE for one life. What's that, one life? We were too lazy to do an acrostic for the word one, so we just went with life. But Eric, you want to tee us up, and I'll kind of fill in the gaps.
Yeah, so if you are familiar with the Saddleback world, we love acrostics. So here you go. If you're taking notes, life, the first letter obviously is L, which stands for live it out. Steve, start out breaking this down for us.
Yeah, and what I'm thinking about this is so often we're the worst, people to be advertising for Jesus. It's like the whole saying, you're the only Bible some people will live. And I know when I get frustrated with this planet, with this world, I mean, I have a big justice bone that kicks up in me. And whenever I'm getting ripped off someplace or I'm not getting good customer service, my wife loves to whisper to me, remember you're a pastor. And remember, it's more important that these people go to heaven than you get your justice, figured out, which I personally hate when she says that, but, she means well and all that. But it reminds me is that, when we talk about living it out, every person we see on this planet is a child of God who God wants to get to heaven. I mean, Scripture is really clear on that in John 3:16 and 3:17. And so the first thing we got to do is live it out. I mean, practical things like, smile, be friendly. Don't be the grouch at the office. Don't be the grouch, where your small group is, parking cars all over the place that your neighbors get all frustrated. Don't be the grouch of your neighborhood, things like that. So really just trying to blend in there and to say, before you think about doing evangelism, look at yourself and say, am I doing anything that would make people excited to see Jesus?
I couldn't have said that better, Steve, and 100% agree. Just being a loving person that cares, I think, is so key in this broken world, on your street, in your neighborhood, wherever you live, just doing those simple little things that are a blessing to people. Yeah. Serving them, being nice to them, all that good stuff. Okay, that's L. Let's jump to I. And now we're talking about the individual person. What do you mean by this, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about, who's the one person. And I think what's so important in your small groups is you can do a quick 90-second exercise that really is, who's one person close to you that needs to know Jesus, and identify that person with a name. Being able to say, who is it in your small group? Like for me, it's Joe and Chrissy. There are people on our cul-de-sac that, are really seeking hard for Jesus and trying to figure out who he is. And when I think of that, whenever you tell in your small group the names of the people that you're praying for, and this you can't make it any more easier than this in your small group. If you just identify the names, if every small group you have and every person in that small group identifies a name, the accountability rises just a little bit. And so it's going to be super important that you get focused on it and you say, okay, who is that one person, so that you can have it in your mind, and everybody in your group can have it in their minds too. And they can be able to ask you, how are they doing? What's happening with this? Give us the latest on this. Have you bumped into them? Have you had a conversation? What are you doing? So it just can't get any more easier than that.
Yeah, there's something to it when you speak that person's name and then you share this person with others. It really does almost bring some evangelism accountability, right? When people start asking.
Sociologists would even tell you that, when you actually vocalize something, whether it's a goal you're trying to work on, whether it's a habit you're trying to break or anything, but like when you're exactly right, the accountability level soars through the roof when you've mentioned the name and say, I want to help these people find Jesus. It really steps it up.
So that was your I. Okay, let's move on to F. And in the notes here, Steve, you got F stands for the 6 F's for building your evangelism pool. That's a mouthful. What the F?
Well, let's go with what the F in a more positive way. But so some people may say, I don't have the one name, or the one name is just such hard ground that you can't get anything done. So there are 6 pools. There are 6 places where hopefully you can decide, does somebody in one of these pools know, maybe they don't know Jesus. So the first F is family. Do you have any family that maybe don't know Jesus, that may live close to you, or may not live close to you, but who are the family that are close? So you can ask that. So if I was thinking, okay, my family, Derek Olson, he needs Jesus because he says, what the F on air. So, obviously there's something there going there. The other thing too is beyond your family, the second F is your friends. Who are friends that you know? Now, this is a great thing because a lot of us, know that the longer you're a Christian, the less non-Christians you know. I know there's a study done a while back that said when you first become a follower of Jesus, you have a pool of about 50 non-believers. By your 10th birthday as a Christian, you have 5. And so what I've got to do, and Derek, I know you got to do the same thing, is that when you're in ministry, you've got to have a concerted effort to have friends that aren't believers. Because generally, when you're working in a church, they are all, followers of Jesus, hopefully with that. So friends is the second one. Third one is frequency. And what we mean by that are where are the places that you frequent, like a barista. You may frequent there quite often. You may take your clothes into a dry cleaner so you see the same person all the time. You may go into a grocery store. It may be a hairdresser. It may be a barber. It may be someone like that. But, there are places where you frequently go that you can, understand that, hey, who are these people? If I don't know their name, I got to start to get to know their name. The factory/firm, in Saddleback, they all got to be F's so we can do this. So whether you're in the factory or whether you're in the firm, what we're talking about is, in the workplace. Are there people in your workplace? Again, if you're a follower of Christ, you work in a church or a nonprofit that's Christian driven, you've got to be figuring out who I may have to go outside of my factory or my firm into vendors that we work with that might be there. The fifth F is fun. Do you have hobbies, or are there things that you do? When the kids were young, I used to play in a volleyball league. When they got older, obviously I got older, and so your hobbies change and stuff like that. You're less risky. I was in a mountain biking thing, and then I had an accident, so then I had to get a different hobby, and so now I'm just doing nothing. But you got to get a hobby. So like college sports, which we're not talking about anymore today. But the sixth one is, I think this is the cool one, and this is the faceless people. And these are the people that weren't on your radar, but they were on God's radar that you bump into. And all the time when you're walking around, when you're going places, you bump into people that they're not a name to you, but maybe they are. So this particular letter in the word life is just saying, start to build your pool, because you just want to move from one name in the I to what are all the names that are around me. And you may find out that you have more people than you know. And inside the show notes, there's a little, the 6 circles that we'll put in the show notes. If you want to download it, pass it out to your group, and you could kind of go through the same thing.
Well, I'm glad you explained the 6 F's there and brought some clarity.
I was going to say, I forgot in my notes I had there that if you have Planning Small Groups with Purpose on page 183, you can see the diagram there, but it's also in the show notes.
Check the show notes for that. Yeah, that's a handy little tool just to kind of really make you think. There's probably a whole lot more people around us than we would consider when we go through those 6 F's, especially the factory. And then I like that one about fun. What are the fun things you're doing? That's just such a great way to meet people, whether it's the gym, whether it's Steve surfing in SoCal. There's just people around to meet, right?
There it is, baby. A little shark will come up and meet you on the surfboard.
All right, let's jump to E, which stands for expressive testimony. Break this down for us.
Yeah. Hey, so, obviously, if you get the chance and you've built a relationship with these people, there's always an opportunity. 1 Corinthians 3:6 talks about some plant, some water, but it's the Lord that brings the harvest. And somewhere in that progression, you get an opportunity to tell your story. And it's important that you are expressive and you're relevant in your testimony. And any of you that have played in team sports before know that you just don't show up to game day and all of a sudden you're playing. You practice hard throughout the whole year. And so one of the things you can do is in your small group, you can practice telling your stories. And here's what we would encourage you to do. There is the 1-minute version of your testimony that you may be able to get to share with somebody. There may be a 3-minute version, and there may be a 10-minute version. And what we overemphasize so often is we think we can tell our story right off the bat. And the Holy Spirit can do all kinds of things. But this E in the word life that we're talking about is use your small group to be able to practice telling your testimony. Set a timer for 1 minute. You'll quickly find out that, you aren't quite as aware of, what you're trying to tell in your story, because most of us in telling our story, we spend a lot of time trying to figure out this whole thing about how we lived a crappy life or a terrible life. And we spend more time on that than how we found Christ or the benefits of what we're excited about being a follower of Christ. So again, you got to be expressive, and you got to understand what you're trying to say and what you really want to say. And there's no better place to practice than in your small group.
Well, there you have it, your acronym for life, LIFE. So, okay, Steve, let me ask you this. So let's say somebody actually wants to do this. They've been through this amazing acronym and the 6 F's. They've got their names down and the people down in their life and their circle of influence. They've got their testimony ready to share. They're just eager beaver. It's the perfect Christian, not that they're perfect, but it's the ideal situation where this Christian wants to go evangelize. So how do they start doing this?
No, it's a great question or point you're bringing up, because it's one thing to know the names, it's one thing to have the passion and desire. It's another thing on how you execute doing it. And I go back to my mom and dad. They knew the truth, but there's an adage that we talk about that it's you want to tell the truth, but it's built on a platform of trust, and trust is built on a platform of time. So you got to spend enough time with the person so you become a trusted resource that when you want to speak the truth comes out. Now, a lot of times in Christians, kind of like what Derek and I were just sharing in both of our stories, we didn't have quite the cross in my house. I mean, I wouldn't put it past my mom or my dad to put, a big cross like you're talking about, wheel it on out there, before you talk to the person. But the thing is, we all know we want to speak the truth to them, but we've got to use the principles. So, you think of the guy or the gal that's at a major league stadium, whether it's, you got the World Cup going, whether you got college football or college basketball or professional sports, there's always going to be somebody at those stadiums or those coliseums, and they will have the sign that says, if you don't know Jesus, you're going to go to hell. Well, they're speaking the truth, but usually everybody wants to avoid those people. And what happens is that they have the truth. They're just not a trusted resource. And that's the beautiful thing, that in your small group, with the parties your small group does, or with the events your small group goes to, the more you can engage non-believers or have non-believers come along, they see Christians that are real. So, long way to say, you got the person in front of you. How do you start? And let me just go off another acrostic called SPEAK. And I know, Derek, this brings such joy to your heart, but it kind of helps you. So the S stands for just ask them what their story is. When you meet that neighbor, when you found out their name, when you have a conversation, one of the first things you can do, it might be, do you want to go to church? Do you want to know Jesus as your Lord and Savior? But the first thing I would encourage you to do is say, what's your story? Just tell me your story. And wherever they pick up, you'll start to get to know their story. Now, as they tell the story, as you get to know them, listen for a few things. Like the P, listen for their passions. What do they get excited about? What are they hungry for? What are some of the things? I've had neighbors, they've talked to me about plants. They've talked to me about the tools that they've had. They've talked to me about the cars they're doing, the way they're going to remodel their house. I had one neighbor who was just Mr. Dog person, and he told me about his dog and the dog's birthday and what he was doing for the dog's birthday party, and it was going to be a surprise party. And I'm just like going, oh my gosh, this brother needs Jesus more than anybody else. But you learn the passions that people have. The other thing you want to do is, because we live in a world that is always eroded and it's always divisive, is you want to do the E, and that is think of how you can give encouragement to them. When I see my neighbors, I always try to spread encouragement to them, regardless of what they're doing with that. So that's S, that's P, that's E. The A is you want to listen for abilities. And what are some of the abilities that they have that you may be able to come alongside them when you need to do things? I can remember one time that with one of my neighbors, he was really into music and DJing and stuff like that. And we had a church events coming up. And I said, dude, what kind of equipment do you think we need? What kind of DJ do you think we should get? And things like that. So you can build a natural inroad with that. And then the K stands for knowledge. Always listen for what kind of knowledge do they have that you can learn more about. We can learn something from everybody. And the thing is, you want to figure out, what you can learn. So you run into them for the very first time. You've done the life acrostic. Now it's time to do the speak acrostic. And so what's their story? What kind of passions do they have? How can you give them encouragement? What abilities are there? And what kind of knowledge can you learn from them? And I think if you do this with your small group, evangelism couldn't be any more easier. Then don't focus so much on the harvesting. Focus on the planting and the watering for your small group.
Wow, and I had a revelation, Steve. If you use both of these amazing acrostics, life and speak, and you put them together, you are speaking life. Come on.
Come on, baby. Tell me that this show wasn't meant to happen. Yes, you can speak life to that one life in today's life.
And can you sing that Toby Mac song real quick?
I wish I could, but I can't. You're such a dog. You're not speaking encouragement to me.
Toby's got that song, Speak Life.
Yeah.
Well, that was amazing. Your listeners, you're getting 2 acrostics for the price of 1. I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you took some notes. Share that with your teams, and we hope that you share this with your small groups, because it will really equip them to grow in evangelism. Well, thanks for spending part of your day with us. We hope this episode encouraged you and equipped you to better lead your small group ministry. And until next time, goodbye.
And speak life.
Speak life.
Thank you for listening to Steve Gladen on Small Groups. If you like what you've heard, make sure you subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. If you want to learn more, make sure you check out smallgroupnetwork.com for more resources.